good. Here's what I got for you today, guys. We're block sanding the Honda here. We're gonna get it all cut down. I've done this fender. We went ahead and got the body work done on the pillar here. You can see. And we've got the door right here. Oh. But we're going to start block sanding it. I went ahead and added some guide coat to the top of the car. I like to do this piecemeal kind of style. I'm going to do the top. I'll go ahead and get these fenders done, the doors, and then we'll get back here to the back half. I don't add the guide coat till I'm ready to go. But these are the tools you're going to need. You're going to need your little DA. Now, what you do with the DA here, they got 320 grit on it. What you're going to do is you're going to initially cut down your surface. Makes it a little quicker for you. You're going to need you a block here, and these are the Durablocks. You can get these at TCP Global. I got 320 grit paper on it, and you'll probably need you some little primer sealer because you'll probably cut through somewhere, and it's quicker to do that than it is to mix up and spray through the gun. But pretty much we're going to get this whole top blocked and everything. I'll try to include some footage showing the process, but I can explain it pretty good here. When you're doing the initial cut to get the guide coat off, you'll take your DA and you want to go in a motion like this, then back and forth, and then you can cut it this way. What you're looking to do is, if you can see the surface here, you're looking to get this guide coat totally cleaned out and sanded smooth. And you do not want to take on a big, huge area. You don't want to take on a big area. You want to be from here to here to here. You want to just find a boundary. You want to work that. And then as soon as you get it clean with the dry sanding, you get it really clean, then just move on to the next area. And you'll have a little bit of an overlap. And just work that small area and small squares all over the flat surfaces of the car. You'll get the top done, you'll get the doors done, and that's how you're going to do it. You want to work in a small area, get all of this guide coat off to where you get like this, where you're down to the point where you don't really have a lot, you don't have anything showing. Now you'll take your block, once you get it here, you just rough it up like I said, then you're just going to take your block. You're going to go straight back and forth, and then you're going to cut it in different directions, and then back and forth. And every once in a while, you can hear it. If you listen, you'll hear that roughness start going away. Like right here, you can just hear it cutting. And as soon as you get that, but you're going to go straight, Now you're going to cut it back and forth. X. And then so you've worked that area. You start to get it smooth, it'll start looking like that with your block. Now once you're to that point, you'll move on to the next area over here on the car, and that's how you do your block sanding. Now mind you, this right here is just the initial flattening and leveling of the primer. Now once you get that done, you know the primer's level, you want to do finishing. So you'll take your DA, and it has this thing called an interface pad on it. It's a foam pad. Now that's not going to do much for leveling because you can it moves over the curves, but it's got 600 grit on here. Dry sanding 600. That's as high as you can go, or you'll have problems with adhesion. I'll go ahead and dry sand this with 600, and this surface will actually be ready. It'll be beyond ready for paint. It'll be so smooth, but I usually put 400 on here and hit it. Now on this little fender here, I hit it up with this and some 600 to get it ultra smooth, to show my wife how smooth it had to be, and she's been helping me with this project. So you'll initially block it, then you'll dry sand it, and then if you want to kick it up a notch even further and do it the proper way, because you're going to run into, you can't just machine sand everything because there's curves. You'll take this wet sandpaper, 600 grit. I use the Gator brand. It's fun, and you'll go around all these hard curves, and you can wet sand those with that around the curves. I don't recommend taking this and like trying to rough it up first with the DA on the flat parts of the car on the top. Yeah, go ahead and do this. The deck lid, if you have a hood to do the hood, but do it on the flat surfaces. On the flat surfaces on the door, use it to your advantage. You know, on these parts right here, which are nice and flat, hit every place you can. But when you get into these places like this, where you've got two curves, you know, you can see it. You've got a curve here, and you've got a peak here. You take a flat DA, it's just going to cut this section right here down, and cut that out, and then these sections right here will still be high. In that case, you're going to need a flexible block or a round block. You can take one of these round blocks, roll the paper on, and you can cut this and roll it around the curve. So that's going to be the hand blocking and stuff to explain. And once you get it roughed up and it's square, like I said, you can take that interface pad and go over it with dry 500. I just don't have any dry 500. All I have is 6. So 500. Then you can wash the car really good and put your paint on. You won't have any problems with that if you do not want to get into wet sanding. Wet sanding is another process. Most guys just take 400 grit and wet sand the whole car at this point, and they're done with it. But I like to save myself a little bit of time and hit it with the 320. Cuts down the time. You know, it knocks down the big stuff that you're going to run into. Like there's a little bit of, and I don't care, you know, you'll get little high spots in the primer where, like I was telling y'all, I had a little bit of sputtering. Yeah, that kind of stuff. DA knocks it down real quick, you're done. But hit it with the DA real quick, get it pretty square, and then just take your block. Didn't take us no time to get that fairly close. Now I'm going to go back over it with the interface pad and probably some 400 and get it ready for paint. But that's what we're going to do. Let me get to it. Let me get this top done and get these doors and everything finished, and then I'll cut y'all back on. Okay guys, now we were block sanding and then we ran into these little low spots right here. These are little dings, probably from hail damage or somebody set something up here. We've got one right there, and we've got these right here. Now what we can do is we could just take some glaze, go over these dents, fix them, and then just block sand it smooth. Or we can continue blocking and see if we can get them out. Now this one right here, I think we'll continue blocking, see if it'll come out. That one. Now these two, this one may come out, but I can feel this one with my hands. So I'm probably gonna add a little glaze to this one. I'll cut you back on when I got that done. Okay guys, we're done with the block sanding. Well, the initial block sanding. We still, we're gonna pull it out. We're gonna go ahead and wash it down, get all of this dust and stuff from the dry sanding phase off of it. We're gonna go ahead and wash it, and then I'm gonna go ahead and put 600 grit wet on it. You know, we want to get a nice uniform finish. I went ahead and did the top of dry 600. It came out pretty good. That's something I'll tell you. Typically, your dry paper, if you sanded it with 400 wet, that would be an equivalent to a 500 grit dry paper. And so that's the difference. People have asked me that. Well, why can't I just sand it with dry? You can. You just get some 500 grit dry, sand the whole car with that, you're ready for paint. I personally like to take mine a little bit further than that, because when I paint, I like a 600 grit, which would be an equivalent to a 700 dry. I've always liked the way that I get a little extra flow out with the 600. It levels a little bit better. That's just a personal preference. The standard is 400 wet and paint, or 500 dry, either way. But anyway, I did a little bit of body work over here. I did there were some dents here. There were some dents in that door down there. Of course, the A-pillar over there. What you need to do on that is just need to get you some etch primer. You know, there's various brands you can get. You can get SEM, SIM. They're really good. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. Just get you some etch primer and spray it on any places where you might have burned through on the corners or little stuff like that. Let it dry. Then hit it with a little Scotch-Brite pad. I use these, the Mercon pads from Merca. Merlon pads, I mean, from Merca. You know, if you want to get some, I use these, a lot of this. Most people don't use them, but I use this brand a lot because it saves you a ton of time. It really does. Plus, if I ever need some Scotch-Brite material, I'll just go ahead and grab one of those and get into the cracks, into these fine places where you need to focus. That's another thing. The more time you spend in this phase, the better your paint job is going to come out. You want to make sure you get all of the stuff, all the little stuff, and this is the most tasking part of a paint job, is the sanding, blocking, and getting everything level. It takes time. It's tedious. So I'll tell you guys, what I like to do is I'll pick sections, like the top of the car, you know, then the pillars. I'll say, you know what, I'm going to do that today, and I'm just going to go and take a break, watch some YouTube videos, you know, read a book, something else. I get that done. I'll come back and then I'll do fenders and maybe a couple of doors. You know, I take my time doing this because you'll notice stuff. The longer you take, you know, the more opportunity you're going to have to notice stuff. And you get into a mindset of just wanting to knock it out, you know, just because it's very tedious, and if you burn yourself out on it, you're not going to want to do it, you know. And that brings me to another important point when it comes to this. If y'all are going to paint a car, have an expectation, a realistic expectation in the first place. This car, I want it to have a decent factory finish. This car is going to get driven. It's going to go through hell and rain and snow and everything else. I want a durable factory finish. What else could I ask for, right? You know, I don't want a show car finish. That's not what I'm shooting for. The factory did a good job, you know. Another point I'll bring up in this phase that is really pertinent to it is like on these fenders here. I should have put 3 coats of primer. You know, over prime and you know, over prime the car and you'll use less paint. You know, because you won't be trying to paint over old factory finishes and stuff like that. That's why this epoxy is that was so important to this job. I didn't want the factory finish, the primer and sealer that they put on the factory, drinking my paint. And that's exactly what it'll do. You know, here we are lucky on the fenders because they were brand new and they had a nice black gel coat kind of finish on there. So we were lucky. But I should have put 3 on there. It would have made the blocking of those much easier. As you can see, I did go through in places that I probably would have been able to get away with if I'd had a 3rd coat, never even seen. But always put enough primer on. Don't be afraid to put an extra coat or 2 of primer on there. I've always slammed down the primer. Try to put as much as I can on here. I'll tell y'all that I'm putting 2 coats on, but my 2 coats is more like 4 coats for most guys. You know, I pound it on real hard and heavy, and then I'll block it back. Makes a little bit more work, but I think that it helps me in the base coat and clear coat sections of the refinishing. It's another thing, break your work up into sections. You know, this stuff, if you're in your own shop, and don't get in a hurry. You know, what's the big hurry? I mean, if you're going to take the car out of service, do the planning that's required. You know, the planning that's required, get another a rental or whatnot, you know, something to get you by. Go ahead and paint the car. But you're going to have to take your time. Always set enough time. And that's my point. You have to have a realistic goal, and you have to have an expectation of what you're going to achieve. And I would never think I'm going to take this old Honda Civic and put a show car finish on here, which is possible. You know, you could put a finish, spend another, you know, 200 or 300 body hours in it and get everything perfect and take everything off the car, shell it, come back in, and then every part we do, we you know, we're touching. But the reason that works that way is because you're taking your time on every individual section of the car. So it makes for a better product, like you see on Discovery Channel and on, you know, some of these builder shows. They take the car all the way apart, go to metal, they rebuild the car that way. But they do take their time, and whether they want to say it or not, you know, they say, oh, it's only a week, but they may put 10,000 man hours into something, you know. The man hours, it takes hours to do this, guys. So don't rush yourself. Don't get burnt out. You will get burnt out on this stage. The more energy you put in here, the better your finish is always going to be. You can be a mediocre painter and have an excellent finish, excellent surface to work with, and you'll get a nice factory job every single time. You could be an awesome painter. You could be the best, and if there's a nice rough finish here and you've got oil and dirt trapped in it because you didn't clean it, you didn't do that, you'll never be able to get even a factory finish. You know, the difference between a factory finish and a show car finish is the prep, guys. How many hours? I put quite a few hours into this car to get a nice factory finish for my wife. It's all going to be uniform. It's going to look good. That's my expectation. But anyway, off of that rant, we're going to go ahead and wash her up now. I appreciate you guys watching my videos. I like all of the comments. I'm going to do some more Rust-Oleum stuff for you guys. It's in the works. I'm going to do some fenders, and we're going to do some stuff that's more specific with the mica powders and all that stuff, because I've gotten lots of questions for that. I appreciate the questions. I do like the fact that you guys are watching the Honda videos. Like I said, this was a project that superseded those projects, but I love experimenting with the Rust-Oleum paint, and I like to see what kind of effects we can get, you know, with, you know, a more budget-minded finish, you know. Okay, guys, car's been completely wet sanded now with 600. Now I got to rinse it off, clean it. Every inch has been hit. But I did it all with 600. I used the standard old Palmolive Essential Clean Original. I used 600 grit gator back paper. I used a 3M wet dry sponge. Went over the whole car with it. Now we'll have to go back and hit some burn throughs with some self-etching primer, and then I'll just use once that's dry, which after I wash it and clean it and everything, I'll start taping it up. I'll use a Scotch-Brite over those little burn throughs, and it'll get it clean enough to accept paint. And it's only a few little spots. One of them's right here, but no big deal. So once we do that, we're going to go ahead and get it masked up and taped and ready for shooting the base. The 99 High Prime's the primer I used. It is a really good primer. I will continue to use it. Compared to the U-Pole primer that I normally use, was using, I think I like this primer better because it has that rapid dry feature in it. It's 5-to-1. It sands really good. It doesn't powder up and load paper the way that some of the other primers like Finish One, even the U-Pole does that. You know, I'd kind of given up, and I hadn't tried this primer. I was expecting it to be about, you know, equal to the Finish One for the price, but I think it's better. I like it. Compared to PPG Shopline, it's better than that. And that's pretty much the primer that gets sprayed 99% of the time in body shops because, you know, they use the PPG paint. And they don't use the expensive primers typically unless the car calls out for it specifically. Like on a higher end job, you're not going to see the most expensive primers used. But back to the point, even if you are using a really high end primer and you spent $200 a gallon on it and all that, primer's still cheaper than paint. So don't be afraid to put an extra coat down. Put 3 down. You know, 3, 3, 3. We're going to put 9. Don't be afraid to use what you've got. You know, primer's far cheaper. And don't be afraid to reprime. If you get down and you get in a situation where you start cutting through, and like over here, if you get to a situation like this where you start cutting through and you've got, obviously, you're getting kind of thin on your primer, you can just mask that up and spray it again. It's not a big deal. I have epoxy underneath there, so I'm not completely concerned, which is yet another reason to use a sealer over an old finish. Because, you know, I didn't really cut through back to the original finish and have holes in there that I have to self-etch and then reprime with 2K. But this is pretty much it. This is then to be washed and done. I'll go ahead and cut you guys back on and y'all can see what it looks like when it's clean, and then I'll start masking it up and getting it prepared for paint. We've got to reconfigure the booth, clean the entire floor in here. All that stuff has to happen before we can get to the painting, but for a couple of days and putting a few hours in it, I think I got pretty good progress this weekend. I did do all the body work on this side of the car, fixed all that stuff. So I think we're getting pretty close to actually spraying the car. But I'll cut you back on when I get it all clean. Okay guys, it's official. We've got it all sanded down with 600. Got a nice little sheen on it. I still have to wipe it down with prep salt and everything, so you'll have to bear with me. You can see it's nice and shiny. That's the 600 right there. You can see it. You know, I got a little water on that one, but it's got a nice little shine to it. It's a dull shine. 600 grit. I still have to wipe it down, like I said. I have to get in there a little bit. Have to get that ready. The fuel cap will have to be painted at the same time. But yeah, here's what I use once I get it all washed. I went outside, I rinsed it off and washed it real good. Then I'll use some isopropyl alcohol and water. They sell expensive wipes. DeVilibus does, Sata does, that are called anti-static wipes. If you get you a lint-free towel, you can get them at Walmart, the blue ones, shop towel, just lint-free, or these wipe all lint-frees, and you spray it down with a 50-50 mix of isopropyl and water. You're pretty much making one of those wipes, and then when you wipe down the entire panel, you are supposed to be eliminating the static that was built up in the sanding process. I use it because it's a good degreaser. It's not toxic. I do not like using Prep-All for everything, or tar grease remover like this. It's pretty bad stuff if you ever look at the MSD sheet. But this kind of stuff, it's pretty gnarly, but it does work really good. And I use it on the very last step, and I wear gloves and everything so I don't get that stuff on my skin. But for the most part, I've painted hundreds of parts with just this isopropyl alcohol and water. It does just as good of a job, in my opinion, other than maybe some of the hard built-in ground-in oils that you'll get in a shop environment sometimes when people are working on the engine, and then they bring that kind of, you'll have to use some kind of wax tar grease remover to get rid of it. But the best investment you can make when you're in this stage, since now that we're in paint and no longer in the bodywork stage, is just buy you a set of gloves. Keep the oils, keep your dirty, don't go work on your your 454 big block and get covered in oil and all over your clothes and go, oh, you know what, I need to go paint that hot rod of mine, because you'll just get all that oil and stuff from your clothes into the finish, and then when you go to spray it, it'll puddle up and have adhesion problems. You'll get webbing. There's just too many bad things that you can get your hands into. Always wash your hands very well. Make sure your hands are clean for the most part when you're in this stage. Wash them. I use Lava brand soap and wash my hands real good. Then I wear gloves, and I wear a clean pair of clothes when I come and do this. Even if they look like they're wore out, that's because they're body shop clothes. But we're pretty much there. We're going to move forward with this. I hope to get the footage of spraying it. She's going to do that. She's going to get all the footage of putting that blue on here. I'm just wondering, if I have enough. I should. I did go to a thing I didn't. I know this is a mess in here. I haven't had a chance to get in here and just clean because I'm really trying to get this done. But I did go to our favorite place, Napa Auto Parts, for paint, because mine store has a mixing system. And I went in there and I got some more paint. That's the Neptune Blue. He didn't have enough in the mixing system to mix me 2 quarts, but I went ahead and got some products, guys. Excuse me. But yeah, I went ahead and got some lids, so when you mix your paint, you can put this on there, and that increases the pot life, guys. Why do you get the lids? Because if I mix that paint up, I go to spray this, and that's a piece of advice I'll give anybody. If you go to spraying and you get this far and you nail a big old chunk of garbage in there, your gun wasn't clean, or a big old puddle of water, or you start seeing some marbling, stop there. You know, stop there, figure out what's going on, clean your gun, make sure you prepped it. You can always take paint. That's the great thing about paint. If you seal it up, you pour it out of there with the reducer in it, you put this cap on top of that, you can store that for a long time before it's even a problem. You could wait the next day, 2 days, next week. That paint's going to be just fine sitting there as long as it's totally sealed up. And if you're worried about the seal on that not being that good, you know, which you probably like me, that's plastic, you just go buy you a metal can. They're $1. Seal that paint back up and save it. Fix the problem. That's a piece of advice I'll give anybody when they say, well, I started spraying, man, and I got some garbage in there and I was going to try to bury it. You know, I tried to put 5 more coats on there to bury this piece of garbage, or, you know, you get a little bubble in it and you get anxious when you're painting. You feel like, oh man, I got to get this done because I done started it and the paint's going to dry on me and all that. It ain't going to dry on you if you've got it and if you store it right. It's fine. Now, when you get into clear coat, you know, you need to stop too, but clear coat is catalyzed, meaning it'll dry in the gun. So you need to get it out of the gun as soon as possible. And it'll also, you know, it has on the label, if you read the instructions for it, it'll always tell you the pot life. And if you're not using some kind of fancy rapid cure like I have, usually, you know, go 8 to 12 hours inside the pot, and that's why they call it pot life. You know, so you know. If you have an issue, and I mean, I know not a lot of people have access to an IR, but I've seen it happen numerous times when you work at a shop. You know, you get the top of a car done or a pillar or something like that, and we put the IR lamp on it, dry it, sand it, and just put everything back in the pot, dry it and sand it within an hour. They would come back after lunch, spray it. You know, that's just for garbage though, and stuff like that. But with paint, if you start getting problems, like I said, your paint needs to be relatively problem free, but you have time with it. Don't get in a rush and think, oh well, I've got to spray it because I put it in the gun. If you get halfway through this job and you start spitting out some garbage, you know, you gotta know, if you're spitting it out from the beginning, you get it right there, it's gonna get here, there, everywhere over the car, and you're gonna spend 16 hours sanding. And when you start spending $300 and $400 a gallon for paint, it really adds up. That's why you'll see at body shops that they talk about paint all the time. Some of the other guys up here on YouTube, that, you know, hey, I only shot 400 milliliters of paint. That's how much it takes for a fender. It takes 200 milliliters of paint for one fender. That's how efficient I need to be to make it profitable for my boss to paint cars. And absolutely, that's in their environment, in collision, paint is king. You know, they'll put whatever kind of clear on that car, but when it comes to the paint, there's no really shortchanging it. So and like I said, if I shot that and only had a little bit left, they usually save that paint. Another trick you can do is, that's a blue color right there. If I had one that was like this hood, close to this hood, I could paint that reclaim paint all over this car as the first coat, and then I would use even less of the bought paint, the premium paint. So I'd use a waste product and end up making even more profit. But like I said, we're doing this at home in our spare time usually. Don't get in a rush, guys. But anyway, I just wanted to make this video and tell you guys that now we're moving to paint, so it's going to be masking. I'll get a little bit of footage of that. I mean, that's kind of the thing I hate to do the most, is mask. I remember back in the day, the body shop, they'd give us, for a car this size, 20 minutes max. You'd have to mask this whole thing. You'd be hauling ass to do it. and that's why I don't like doing masking now. But you know, take your time masking, make sure you get everything right. You don't want to end up and mask something short, especially now that we're in this stage, and then end up blowing, you know, clean, you know, paint. You don't want to end up with these kind of mistakes. You know, I do it too because I get in a hurry. But I know how to clean this. I've ran into this problem before. But I'm going to take this off and just replace it anyway. It's sun damaged. And then I'm going to go ahead and take these off too and paint them with a little bit of single stage, maybe Rust-Oleum. If you guys want to see Rust-Oleum, I'll paint these black Rust-Oleum with a little bit of clear coat in there. And I'll clear them up. They'll look like that, and we'll replace the wiper heads. So that's all going to be jet black. I'm also going to take these stupid hubcaps off here, and I'm going to clean up that rim and go ahead and use probably, I guess, Rust-Oleum black. And I'll do a flat black on them and then put gloss clear on it so it looks real good. So we get that effect. I know y'all are probably getting anxious to see the reveal of how the car is going to look all together, because y'all don't know every part that I've bought for the car and everything, because I kind of stopped talking about it so much just to get the damn paint on here. So anyway, I'm just ranting on now. So guys, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys coming in, everyone who comments, and some of the guys who have tons of experience with this stuff who come in and you know, give me encouragement to keep going and producing these videos. I appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be notified when I come out with new videos. And I hope you guys have a blessed week. And thanks for watching.